The summer sun beat down on Maya Chen as she stepped out of her car at the visitor parking lot of Westfield Air Force Base. She checked her watch, 20 minutes early for her meeting. Perfect. She smoothed down her light blue dress, a simple knee-length number that felt refreshing in the heat. The dress was practical enough for the informal meeting about her transfer, and she'd change into her uniform once officially on duty tomorrow. Maya took a deep breath and grabbed her credentials from the passenger seat. After years of pushing herself to the limit as a test pilot, this new assignment felt like both a challenge and an opportunity. The breeze caught her short black hair as she walked toward the security checkpoint, her small frame moving with the precise confidence that came from a lifetime of proving herself. "ID, please," said the guard, barely looking up from his booth. Maya handed over her military credentials. "Captain Maya Chen. I have a meeting with Colonel Rivera at 1400 hours. The guard nodded, checked her credentials against his list, and handed her a visitor's pass. "Building C, ma'am. Straight ahead, then. Left at the flagpole." Maya thanked him and walked onto the base, taking in her surroundings. Fighter jets lined the distant runway, their metal gleaming in the sunlight. This would be her home for the next year, evaluating and improving the F-35 training program. The thought made her smile. Flying the most advanced fighter jet in the world wasn't a bad way to spend her days. As she approached Building C, she noticed a tall man in a crisp Air Force uniform walking out. His commander insignia caught the light, and Maya recognized the name on his uniform: Commander Jackson. He was talking intently with two junior officers, gesturing emphatically about something. Maya hesitated. Jackson wasn't scheduled to be part of her initial meeting, but he was the head of the current F-35 training program, the very one she was here to evaluate. Maybe a quick introduction would be good. She approached the group, waiting for a pause in their conversation. When it came, she stepped forward with a polite smile. "Excuse me, Commander Jackson. I'm Captain Chen. I'll be joining." The commander turned, his eyebrows rising as he looked down at her. His gaze swept from her face to her dress and back again, a flicker of dismissal crossing his features before he even spoke. "Miss, this is a restricted area. Civilians aren't allowed past the visitor center without an escort." His tone was clipped, impatient. Maya blinked, taken aback. "Sir, I'm not a civilian. I'm Captain Maya Chen, here for—" "Look," he cut her off. "I don't know how you got past security, but this is a military installation. We're in the middle of important operations, and I don't have time for lost visitors." He turned to one of the junior officers beside him. "Lieutenant, please escort this young lady back to the visitor center." The lieutenant, a woman with a tight ponytail, looked uncomfortable but nodded. "Yes, sir." Maya stood her ground, her cheeks flushing with a mix of embarrassment and frustration. "Commander, I have my credentials right here." She held up her ID. "I'm the new test pilot assigned to evaluate the F-35 program. Colonel Rivera is expecting me." Jackson barely glanced at her ID. "Miss, anyone can print something that looks official. If you were really military personnel, you'd be in uniform, not a cocktail dress. Now please, go with the lieutenant before I call security." "This is not a cocktail dress," Maya said, her voice level despite her rising anger. "And I'm reporting tomorrow officially. Today's meeting is preliminary and informal." The commander's face hardened. "I know every pilot assigned to this base, especially anyone cleared for the F-35 program. And I can assure you there's no 5'0" woman joining my team." He turned to the other junior officer. "In fact, call security anyway. I want to know how she got past the gate." The young man nodded and stepped away, speaking quietly into his radio. Maya stood perfectly still, her hands clenched at her sides. 10 years in the Air Force, over 2,000 flight hours in experimental aircraft, a master's degree in aerospace engineering, and she was being treated like a lost teenager who'd wandered onto the base by accident. "Commander?" She tried one more. If you just call Colonel Rivera." "I'm not bothering the colonel with this," Jackson interrupted. "He's preparing for an important arrival tomorrow, a senior test pilot who's going to help us fix some issues with our program." He gave her a condescending smile. "Now, why don't you tell me who you really are and what you're doing here?" Before Maya could answer, two security officers approached at a brisk pace. The taller one spoke to Commander Jackson. "Sir, is there a problem?" Jackson gestured toward Maya. "This civilian somehow got past the front gate. I want to know how that happened and who she's really here to see." The security officer turned to Maya. "Ma'am, can I see your ID, please?" Maya handed it over, her jaw tight. "Captain Maya Chen, I'm here to meet with Colonel Rivera about my new assignment." The officer examined her ID carefully, then spoke into his radio. After a moment, he looked up with a frown. "Front gate confirms they checked her in. She's on the visitor list for today." Jackson's expression darkened. "That doesn't mean she belongs in this section. The visitor center is for civilians with appointments. Building C is restricted." "Sir," Maya said, struggling to keep her voice even, "my appointment is with Colonel Rivera in his office, which I believe is in this building." The security officer looked uncertain, glancing between Maya and the commander. "Should I call the colonel's office to confirm, sir?" "Don't bother him," Jackson said sharply. "I'll take responsibility. Escort her back to the visitor center. If she really has an appointment, someone can come get her from there." Maya felt a surge of indignation. "This is ridiculous. I am an Air Force captain, and I have every right to be here." "Ma'am," one of the security officers said gently, "please come with us. We can sort this out at the visitor center." Maya realized she had little choice. Making a scene would only make things worse. With a curt nod, she allowed the officers to lead her away, feeling Commander Jackson's dismissive gaze on her back. As they walked, Maya heard laughter from behind them, followed by Jackson's carrying voice. "Can you believe that? She thought she could just walk in and claim to be our new F-35 specialist." Maya's face burned, but she kept her head high as they escorted her across the base. The security officers were professional at least. Not rough or disrespectful, just doing their job. Still, the humiliation stung, especially as they passed groups of personnel who turned to watch the small woman in a blue dress being escorted by security. At the visitor center, Maya was asked to wait while they contacted Colonel Rivera's office. She sat stiffly in a plastic chair, watching the minutes tick by on the wall clock. Her meeting time came and went. Finally, a harried-looking aide rushed into the visitor center. "Captain Chen? I'm Lieutenant Wong, Colonel Rivera's aide. I am so sorry about this mix-up." He looked genuinely distressed. "The colonel sent me to find you when you didn't arrive for your meeting." Maya stood, relief washing over her. There was a misunderstanding with Commander Jackson. He didn't believe I was military personnel. The lieutenant winced. "I heard. The colonel is not happy about it." He gestured toward the door. "He'd like to see you right away, if you're willing." As they walked back toward Building C, Maya felt eyes on her again, but this time with curious whispers following in her wake. Word had clearly spread about the incident. Lieutenant Wong glanced at her apologetically. "Commander Jackson can be traditional in his views, but there's no excuse for what happened." Maya nodded, her professional mask firmly in place despite the churning in her stomach. This was supposed to be a simple introductory meeting before she officially started tomorrow. Now, her arrival on base was marked by public humiliation and prejudice. As they approached Building C again, Maya straightened her shoulders. Tomorrow she would arrive in full uniform, with all her credentials and accomplishments impossible to dismiss. And then Commander Jackson would learn exactly what the weak woman in a short dress was capable of. The next morning, Maya's alarm went off at 0500 hours. She rose quickly, her body trained by years of military discipline to shake off sleep efficiently. As she dressed in her formal Air Force uniform, she took extra care with every detail. Each button precisely fastened, every crease razor sharp, her captain's bars gleaming on her shoulders. Her flight medals and ribbons told the story that Commander Jackson had refused to hear yesterday. Maya studied herself in the mirror, adjusting her cap to the proper angle. At 5'3", she'd spent her entire career being underestimated. Yesterday's humiliation was nothing new, just more public than usual. She'd learned long ago that the best response wasn't anger but excellence. Let her work speak for itself. She arrived at the base 30 minutes early, parking in the staff lot this time. The morning air was cool, promising another hot day ahead. The same guard was at the gate, but today his eyes widened slightly as he checked her ID and saw her uniform. "Good morning, Captain," he said, his tone much more respectful than yesterday. "Welcome to Westfield." Maya thanked him with a nod and drove through. As she walked toward the main offices, she noticed people glancing her way, some whispering to each other. Word had clearly spread about yesterday's incident. Colonel Rivera was waiting for her in the conference room, along with 3 other officers. His face brightened when she entered. "Captain Chen," he said warmly, standing to greet her. "It's good to finally meet you in person." Maya saluted crisply. "Thank you, sir. I apologize for missing our meeting yesterday." The colonel's expression darkened. "That situation was not your fault, Captain. I've already addressed it with Commander Jackson." He gestured to the others in the room. "Please meet your core team. Lieutenant Wong you met yesterday. This is Captain Rodriguez, our maintenance chief, and Lieutenant Clark, who will be your administrative support." Maya shook hands with each of them, noting their friendly, curious expressions. No hint of the dismissal she'd faced yesterday. "Now," said Colonel Rivera, "let's get you briefed on the program." For the next 2 hours, they reviewed the F-35 training protocols, the issues that had been reported, and Maya's role in evaluating and improving the system. Maya asked detailed questions, her expertise evident in every comment and suggestion. Lieutenant Clark whispered to Rodriguez at one point, "Hard to believe Jackson thought she was a lost civilian." Rodriguez nodded. "Wait until he finds out she outranks him in flight hours on experimental aircraft." As if summoned by their whispers, the conference room door opened, and Commander Jackson walked in. He stopped short when he saw Maya, his eyes widening in recognition before narrowing again. "Commander," Colonel Rivera said, his voice coolly professional. "Good of you to join us. I believe you've already met Captain Chen?" Jackson's jaw tightened as he took in Maya's uniform and the impressive array of medals and ribbons displayed on it. "Sir, Captain Chen is one of our most experienced test pilots," Rivera continued, not giving Jackson a chance to speak. "She has logged over 2,000 hours in experimental aircraft, including 500 in various stages of the F-35 development. She comes to us directly from Edwards Air Force Base, where she was instrumental in refining the control systems for our newest models." Maya kept her expression neutral, though she couldn't help noticing the color rising in Jackson's face. "I wasn't aware," Jackson said stiffly. "Captain, I apologize for the misunderstanding yesterday." Maya nodded once. "Apology accepted, Commander." Her tone was professional, betraying none of the satisfaction she felt at his discomfort. Colonel Rivera gestured to an empty chair. "Please, join us. We were just discussing the issues with the current training program." Jackson sat, his posture rigid. "What specific issues are we addressing?" Maya flipped open her folder. "According to the reports, there's been an unusually high washout rate in the training program, almost 40% higher than at other F-35 training facilities. That suggests a problem with either the training methods or the evaluation criteria." Jackson frowned. "Our standards are high because the stakes are high. We're producing the best F-35 pilots in the Air Force. Quality matters," Maya agreed, "but so does efficiency. If we're losing good potential pilots because of flaws in the training approach, that's a problem we need to fix." "With all due respect, Captain," Jackson said, emphasizing her rank in a way that suggested he didn't quite believe it. "You haven't even seen our program in action yet. Perhaps you should reserve judgment until you have." "That's exactly why Captain Chen is here," Colonel Rivera interjected. "To observe, evaluate, and help us improve. Her experience makes her uniquely qualified for this assignment." Maya met Jackson's gaze directly. "I've reviewed the simulator data from the last 3 training cohorts. The patterns suggest issues with the high-speed maneuver protocols, particularly in the transition from conventional to vertical flight modes." Jackson's eyebrows rose slightly. "You've analyzed the data already?" "I like to be prepared," Maya said simply. "And the numbers don't lie, Commander. Your trainees are failing most often in scenarios that shouldn't be as challenging as your program is making them. A flash of annoyance crossed Jackson's face. The scenarios are designed to push pilots to their limits. That's how we find the best. Or how we waste talent and resources, Maya countered. I'd like to see the simulator set up this afternoon if possible, and tomorrow I want to observe actual flight training. Colonel Rivera nodded. Lieutenant Wong will arrange everything. He turned to Jackson. Commander, I expect you to give Captain Chen your full cooperation. Jackson's "yes, sir" was clipped but proper. As the meeting wrapped up, Maya gathered her materials efficiently. She could feel Jackson watching her, reassessing. She'd seen that look before, the reluctant recalculation happening behind his eyes as he tried to reconcile his initial dismissal with the evidence of her competence now in front of him. Lieutenant Wong approached as they left the conference room. Captain Chen, would you like a tour of the facilities before lunch? I'd appreciate that, Maya said with a smile. As Wong led her through the base, pointing out key areas and introducing her to personnel, Maya noticed the shift in how people responded to her. Yesterday, in her dress, she'd been invisible or dismissed. Today, in uniform with her rank and medals visible, she received respectful nods and salutes. They passed the hangars where the F-35s were housed, and Maya paused, taking in the sleek lines of the advanced fighter jets. Despite everything, excitement bubbled up inside her. Flying these magnificent machines was why she'd joined the Air Force, why she'd pushed through every barrier and dismissal. Beautiful, aren't they? Said a voice behind her. Maya turned to see Commander Jackson standing a few feet away, his gaze fixed on the aircraft. Yes, they are, she agreed. I've flown the A and B variants, but this will be my first time with the C model. Jackson looked at her with genuine surprise. You've already logged hours in the F-35? Over 200, Maya said. I was part of the testing. Team for the updated control systems last year. Something shifted in Jackson's expression. Not quite respect, but perhaps the beginning of it. That wasn't in the brief I received. Perhaps you should read my full file, Commander, Maya suggested mildly. You might find it informative. Before he could respond, Lieutenant Wong cleared his throat. Captain, we should continue if you want to see everything before lunch. Maya nodded and followed Wong, leaving Jackson staring after them. The simulator room was their last stop before the mess hall. Inside, two pilots were running through a complex scenario, their hands moving rapidly over the controls as they responded to simulated threats. This is where we do most of the initial training, Wong explained. Pilots spend at least 100 hours in the simulator before they ever touch an actual F-35. Maya watched the pilots work, noting their techniques and responses. Who designed the simulation scenarios? Commander Jackson developed most of them, Wong said. He's very thorough. Maya raised an eyebrow at Wong's careful choice of words. Thorough is good, unrealistic is not. Between us, Wong said quietly, some of the scenarios seem designed to be impossible, like they're meant to push pilots to failure rather than teach them. Interesting, Maya murmured, watching as one of the pilots in the simulator cursed as his simulated aircraft crashed. Very interesting. After lunch, Maya met with Colonel Rivera in his office for a private briefing. The colonel closed the door and sighed heavily. I want to apologize again for yesterday, Captain. That's not how we treat our officers at Westfield. Thank you, sir, Maya said. But I'd rather focus on the work ahead. Rivera nodded approvingly. That's why you were selected for this assignment. Your record speaks for itself, and we need someone with both your technical expertise and your, resilience. Maya tilted her head. You knew there might be resistance to my appointment? Let's just say I was aware of certain traditional attitudes among some of our senior staff. Rivera's diplomatic phrasing made Maya smile slightly. But I also know talent when I see it, Captain, and your talent is exactly what this program needs. I appreciate your confidence, sir. It's not confidence, it's recognition of facts, Rivera said firmly. Now, about Commander Jackson. He's an excellent pilot and has done good work here, but he can be stubborn. I've noticed, Maya said dryly. He designed much of the current training program, so any criticism will be taken personally. Rivera leaned forward. But the program needs improvement, and you're here to make that happen. Don't let his attitude interfere with your assessment. I never do, sir, Maya assured him. As she left the colonel's office, Maya felt a renewed sense of purpose. Tomorrow, she would observe the actual flight training, and then she would begin the real work of evaluating and redesigning the program. Commander Jackson's attitude was just another obstacle to navigate, and navigating obstacles was what she did best. She walked toward her temporary quarters, passing the hangars again. The afternoon sun glinted off the F-35's inside, and Maya paused once more to admire them. Soon she would be in the cockpit, feeling the incredible power of the aircraft responding to her commands. No dismissals or doubts could take that away from her. A mechanic working nearby noticed her interest and called out, "Beautiful machines, aren't they, Captain?" Maya smiled. The most beautiful in the world. The control tower at Westfield Air Force Base stood tall against the morning sky, its windows reflecting the golden sunrise. Maya arrived early, her uniform crisp as she made her way to the observation deck where she would watch the day's training flights. 3 F-35s were scheduled for takeoff, piloted by instructors demonstrating key maneuvers for the current class of trainees. Lieutenant Wong was waiting for her, clipboard in hand. "Good morning, Captain Chen. We've got a perfect day for flying. Clear skies, minimal wind." "Excellent," Maya said, accepting the headset he offered. "Who's leading today's demonstration?" "Commander Jackson himself," Wong replied. "He always handles the most complex demonstration sequences." Maya nodded, not surprised. "And the training scenarios? Are they the same ones I flagged in the simulator data?" "Yes, ma'am. The high-speed transition maneuvers and the vertical landing sequence." Maya settled into a chair by the window, adjusting her headset. Through the glass, she could see ground crews preparing the aircraft, their movements precise and practiced. In the distance, 3 pilots walked toward the planes, flight suits on, helmets tucked under their arms. Even from this distance, she could recognize Jackson's confident stride. "Captain Chen," came a deep voice from behind her. Maya turned to see Colonel Rivera entering the observation deck. "Thought I'd join you for this morning's demonstration." Maya stood to greet him. "Good morning, sir." Rivera took the seat beside her. "I'm curious to hear your professional assessment. These are the maneuvers with the highest washout rate." "I'll be taking detailed notes," Maya assured him. The radio crackled to life with pre-flight checks. Maya listened intently to the pilots. Communications, noting the clipped professional tone of Jackson's voice as he led his team through the protocols. "Westfield Tower, this is Raptor Lead. We are ready for takeoff." "Raptor Lead, Westfield Tower. You are cleared for takeoff on runway 29er." Maya watched as the first F-35 roared down the runway, its powerful engines propelling it skyward with breathtaking speed. The other 2 followed in perfect sequence, forming up as they climbed. For the next hour, Maya observed every maneuver with a critical eye, making notes on a tablet as the jets performed increasingly complex sequences. The pilots were undeniably skilled, their handling of the advanced aircraft impressive. "Coming up on the high-speed transition," Lieutenant Wong murmured. Maya leaned forward slightly. This was the maneuver that had caused the most failures in the simulator data. A rapid shift from conventional flight to hover mode at high speed, followed by an immediate return to forward flight. The lead F-35, Jackson's, executed the maneuver first. Maya watched closely, noting the slight wobble as the aircraft transitioned back to forward flight. "Did you see that?" she asked Rivera quietly. The colonel nodded. The recovery wasn't as clean as it should be. The second pilot attempted the same maneuver and struggled more visibly, nearly losing control before recovering. The third managed better, but still showed signs of difficulty. "The approach angle is wrong," Maya said, making rapid notes. "They're coming in too steep for the transition." As the demonstration continued, Maya identified several more issues with the training sequences. By the time the aircraft returned, To base, she had filled several pages with observations and suggestions. The pilots taxied to a stop and climbed out of their jets. Maya watched as they removed their helmets and walked toward the debriefing room, their faces flushed with the exhilaration of flight. "Shall we join the debriefing?" Rivera suggested. Maya nodded, gathering her notes. "I'd like to hear their perspective." In the debriefing room, the pilots were already discussing the flight, pointing to a large screen displaying their flight paths. Jackson stood at the front, his back straight as he critiqued his team's performance. "Your transition was sloppy, Lieutenant," he was saying to one of the pilots. "A half-second delay could be fatal in combat conditions." "Yes, sir," the young pilot replied, looking chastened. Jackson noticed Maya and Rivera entering and paused. "Colonel, Captain, I hope you found the demonstration informative." "Very," Maya said. "May I?" She gestured toward the screen. Jackson hesitated, then stepped aside. "Of course." Maya moved to the front of the room, bringing up her tablet. "First, excellent flying, gentlemen. Your skill is evident." She tapped. Her tablet and her notes appeared on the screen. "However, I noticed several issues with the training sequences themselves." The room fell silent as Maya walked them through her observations, pointing out the flaws in the approach angles, the unrealistic timing demands, and the unnecessary complications in what should be straightforward maneuvers. "The high-speed transition failure rate isn't because pilots can't handle the F-35, she concluded. It's because the maneuver as currently designed fights against the aircraft's natural flight dynamics. Jackson's face had grown increasingly tense as she spoke. These sequences are designed to push pilots beyond standard parameters. That's how we prepare them for combat situations. There's a difference between challenging and counterproductive, Maya replied evenly. The current approach teaches pilots to fight their aircraft instead of working with it. With all due respect, Captain, Jackson said, the words coming out stiffly. These sequences have been developed over years of actual combat experience. And they need updating based on the latest flight data, Maya countered. The F-35's control systems have evolved. Your training should evolve with them. The tension in the room was palpable as the two officers faced off. The other pilots watched with wide eyes, glancing between Jackson and Maya. Colonel Rivera cleared his throat. Captain Chen makes some compelling points, Commander. Her expertise with the latest F-35 systems is why she's here. Jackson's jaw tightened. Theoretical expertise is valuable, but there's no substitute for actual combat flight experience. Maya kept her expression neutral, though she felt a flash of irritation. My recommendations aren't theoretical, Commander. They're based on actual flight data and the physical capabilities of the aircraft. Perhaps you'd like to demonstrate your approach, Captain? Jackson's tone was challenging. Show us how it should be done. A hush fell over the room. Everyone knew Maya had just arrived and hadn't even been cleared for the base's F-35s yet. Before Maya could respond, Rivera spoke up. That's an excellent suggestion, Commander. Captain Chen should demonstrate her recommendations in practice. Jackson looked surprised, clearly not having expected the colonel to agree. Sir, Captain Chen hasn't been through our qualification process yet. Captain Chen's qualifications exceed our standard requirements, Rivera said firmly. I've reviewed her flight records personally. She's more than qualified to fly our aircraft. Maya kept her face carefully neutral, though inside she felt a surge of gratitude toward the colonel. I'd be happy to demonstrate, sir, with your permission. Rivera nodded. Make it happen, Commander. Schedule Captain Chen for a demonstration flight tomorrow. Jackson's lips pressed into a thin line. Yes, sir. He turned to Maya. You'll need a briefing on our specific aircraft configurations, and you'll fly the same course we demonstrated today. Actually, Rivera interjected, let's have Captain Chen fly your advanced training course, Commander, the one you developed for the final phase of training. Jackson's eyes widened slightly. Sir, that course is designed for pilots who have completed months of training on the F-35. Are you suggesting Captain Chen isn't qualified to handle it? Rivera asked mildly. Jackson was trapped, and he knew it. No, sir. I'm sure the captain is highly qualified. Good. It's settled then. Rivera turned to Maya. Captain, get whatever briefings you need today. Tomorrow you'll show us your approach to the advanced course. As the meeting broke up, Maya found herself surrounded by the other pilots, all eager to talk with her about her observations. Their initial wariness had given way to curiosity and respect. Your point about the transition angle makes perfect sense, one lieutenant said excitedly. I've been struggling with that sequence for weeks. The current approach feels like we're fighting the aircraft, another agreed. I thought it was just me. Maya answered their questions patiently, pleased by their receptiveness. From the corner of her eye, she noticed Jackson watching her, his expression unreadable. Later, as she reviewed the technical specifications for Westfield's F-35s, Lieutenant Wong brought her a cup of coffee. Everyone's talking about tomorrow's flight, he said, setting the cup down beside her. No one's ever flown the advanced course on their first day in one of our jets. Maya smiled slightly. First times for everything. Wong lowered his voice. Just so you know, Commander Jackson designed that course to be nearly impossible. Only 3 pilots have completed it successfully, and he's one of them. Nearly impossible isn't the same as impossible, Maya replied, taking a sip of coffee. The commander seems pretty confident you'll struggle, Wong continued. He was talking to some of the senior pilots after the briefing. Maya looked up from her tablet. Did he bet against me? Wong looked uncomfortable. Not officially, but there might be an unofficial pool going around. And what did you bet, Lieutenant? A smile broke across Wong's face. On you, Captain. Definitely on you. Maya returned to her review of the aircraft specifications, but her mind was already running through the advanced course, visualizing each maneuver, each transition. Tomorrow would be her chance to prove herself, not just to Commander Jackson, but to everyone at Westfield who still saw her as an outsider. That evening, she spent hours in the simulator, familiarizing herself with the specifics of Westfield's F-35 configuration. The differences were subtle but important, and Maya wanted to be fully prepared. As she walked back to her quarters under the stars, she passed the hangars where the jets rested. Through an open door, she could see mechanics working late, preparing an aircraft for tomorrow's flight. Her flight. One of the mechanics noticed her and waved. She'll be ready for you in the morning, Captain, giving her some extra attention tonight. Thank you, Maya called back, touched by the gesture. In her quarters, Maya reviewed her notes one last time before turning in. Tomorrow would be challenging, perhaps the most difficult test flight of her career. Not because of the course itself, she'd flown more complex patterns during experimental testing, but because of what it represented. This wasn't just about proving Jackson wrong. It was about changing the training program to better serve the pilots who would eventually fly these jets in combat. It was about using her expertise to make a difference. Maya set her alarm for 500 and closed her eyes, her mind still flying through tomorrow's course, perfecting every turn, every transition. In her dreams, she soared through the sky, the F-35 responding to her commands like an extension of her own body, dancing through impossible maneuvers with graceful precision. Tomorrow, she would turn those dreams into reality. Dawn broke over, Westfield Air Force Base with streaks of pink and gold painting the sky. Maya stood on the tarmac, her flight suit zipped up against the morning chill. She took slow, measured breaths, centering herself as she always did before a flight. The F-35 waited nearby, its sleek lines gleaming in the early light. The ground crew moved around her with quiet efficiency, performing final checks. Maya had already completed her pre-flight inspection, methodically examining every detail of the aircraft that would soon carry her through Commander Jackson's supposedly impossible training course. "She's ready for you, Captain," said the crew chief, a stocky woman with capable hands and eyes that missed nothing. "Fuel tanks full, systems green across the board." "Thank you, Chief," Maya said with a nod of appreciation. As she stood there, helmet tucked under her arm, Maya became aware of movement around the edges of the tarmac. Pilots, mechanics, and base personnel were gathering to watch. Word of her challenge had spread quickly, and it seemed half the base had found reasons to be near the runway this morning. Lieutenant Wong approached, clipboard in hand. "Morning," Briefing is complete, Captain. Weather conditions are optimal. Colonel Rivera is in the tower with the other observers. He hesitated, then added more quietly, Commander Jackson is up there too. Maya nodded, unsurprised. Of course he is. The entire course will be recorded for analysis, Wong continued. Both aircraft performance data and visual tracking. Good, Maya said. That's exactly what I want. In the distance, she could see another group arriving, the trainees currently going through the F-35 program. They stood together, watching, with unconcealed curiosity. Maya knew her flight today would either reinforce or challenge everything they were being taught. It's time, Captain, Wong said, checking his watch. Maya nodded and put on her helmet. As she walked toward the aircraft, she felt a familiar calm settling over her. This was her element. Here in the cockpit, nothing mattered but her skill and the machine. The ladder was in place and Maya climbed it with practiced ease. She settled into the cockpit, running her hands over the controls in a habitual gesture that was part check, part greeting. The F-35 systems came to life around her, displays illuminating with data and status indicators. Through her headset came the voice of the tower controller. Captain Chen, this is Westfield Tower. Pre-flight checks authorized. Westfield Tower, this is Captain Chen. Beginning pre-flight checks now. Maya went through the sequence methodically, her voice steady as she confirmed each system. Outside, the ground crew stood ready, listening to her progress. All systems, green, she reported finally. Request clearance for engine start. Clearance granted, Captain. You may start your engine when ready. Maya engaged the powerful engine, feeling the aircraft come alive beneath her. The F-35 hummed with contained energy, ready to leap into the sky at her command. Westfield Tower, engine start complete. Request taxi clearance. Captain Chen, you are cleared to taxi to runway 29er. Winds 5 knots from the southwest. Maya released the brake and guided the F-35 forward, its nose turning toward the runway. As she taxied, she could see people watching from every vantage point. Near the end of the runway stood Colonel Rivera with several senior officers. Commander Jackson was not among them. He remained in the tower, where he would have the best view of her entire flight. At the runway threshold, Maya performed her final checks. Everything was perfect. The aircraft was ready. She was ready. Westfield Tower. Captain Chen requesting clearance for takeoff. There was a brief pause. Then Jackson's voice came through her headset. Captain Chen, this is Commander Jackson. You are cleared for takeoff. The advanced course will begin at waypoint Alpha. Good luck. The slight emphasis on luck wasn't lost on Maya, but she kept her voice neutral. Understood, Commander. Proceeding with takeoff. Maya pushed the throttle forward, feeling the F-35 surge with power. The acceleration pressed her back into her seat as the jet raced down the runway, gathering speed with breathtaking quickness. At precisely the right moment, she pulled back on the stick and the F-35 left the ground, climbing into the clear blue sky with eager grace. The sensation was exhilarating. It always was. No matter how many times she flew, Maya never tired of that moment when the earth fell away and she was free, dancing with gravity and wind. She brought the aircraft to the designated altitude and headed toward waypoint Alpha, where the advanced training course would begin. In her mind, she reviewed the sequence once more, the complex series of maneuvers, transitions, and simulated combat scenarios that had defeated most pilots who attempted it. Approaching waypoint Alpha, she reported. Ready to begin the course. Confirmed, Captain, came Jackson's voice. Course is hot. Begin when ready. Maya took a deep breath and pushed the F-35 forward, accelerating into the first maneuver. A high-speed climb followed by a rollover and dive. The G-forces pulled at her body as she executed the sequence perfectly, feeling the aircraft respond to her commands with precision. From there, the course intensified. Each maneuver flowed into the next. Tight turns, rapid ascents and descents, transitions between conventional and vertical flight modes. Maya handled each one with fluid expertise, making small adjustments to Jackson's prescribed approaches based on her understanding of the F-35's flight dynamics. Excellent execution, Captain, came Rivera's voice over the radio. Proceeding to Phase 2. Phase 2 introduced simulated combat scenarios, evasive maneuvers and targeting runs. Here, Maya knew, was where most pilots struggled. Jackson's course called for nearly impossible timing, pushing both pilot and aircraft to their limits. Maya approached it differently. Rather than fighting against the F-35's natural tendencies, she worked with them, using the aircraft's strengths to achieve the same objectives more efficiently. Where Jackson's approach called for brute force, Maya employed finesse. In the tower, the observers watched in stunned silence as Maya's F-35 moved through the course with a grace none of them had seen before. The tracking data showed she was not only completing each objective but doing so with better speed and fuel efficiency than anyone had achieved previously. "She's modifying the approach vectors," Jackson said, his voice tight as he watched the displays. "That's not the standard procedure." "But it's working," Colonel Rivera pointed out. "Look at the performance metrics." On the displays, Maya's scores continued to climb, exceeding the previous records for the course. Her aircraft moved with an almost dancer-like quality, each maneuver flowing seamlessly into the next. In the cockpit, Maya was fully immersed in the flight, her body and mind working in perfect harmony with the machine. This was why she had become a pilot. For moments, like this, when everything else fell away and there was only the sky and the aircraft and the pure joy of flight. "Beginning final phase," she reported, her voice calm despite the intense concentration required. The final phase was the most challenging, a series of high-speed transitions culminating in a vertical landing on a designated target. This was where even the best pilots often failed, unable to manage the complex sequence of control inputs required. Maya approached the sequence with confidence, having already identified the flaws in Jackson's methodology. Instead of the steep transition angle he prescribed, she used a more gradual approach, working with the F-35's control systems rather than against them. The aircraft responded beautifully, shifting from conventional flight to hover mode with only the slightest tremor. Maya brought it down with exquisite precision, touching down exactly on the designated target. "Vertical landing complete," she reported, unable to keep a note of satisfaction from her voice. "Course completed." There was a moment of silence on the radio. Then Colonel Rivera's voice, warm with approval. "Outstanding, Captain Chen. Return to base." Maya guided the F-35 back to the runway, her heart light with achievement. As she taxied toward the hangar, she could see people gathered, many applauding, as she approached. She brought the aircraft to a stop and shut down the engine, the sudden silence almost startling after the constant sound of flight. As she climbed down the ladder, Colonel Rivera was waiting with a broad smile. "Remarkable flying, Captain. Simply remarkable." "Thank you, sir," Maya said, removing her helmet. Her short hair was damp with sweat, but her eyes were bright with the lingering exhilaration of the flight. "You didn't just complete the course," Rivera continued. "You shattered every record we have for it. Speed, efficiency, precision, all of them." A group of pilots approached, their faces animated with excitement. "That was incredible, Captain. The way you handled that high-speed transition, I've never seen anything like it. Can you show us how you modified the approach vector?" Maya smiled, answering their questions patiently. She could see the trainees watching from a respectful distance, their expressions a mixture of awe and renewed hope. If her methods worked, perhaps they too could master the challenging sequences that had seemed impossible before. Commander Jackson finally appeared, walking from the direction of the control tower. His face was composed, but Maya could see the conflict in his eyes, reluctant respect warring with pride. "Impressive flying, Captain," he said as he reached the group. "Your modifications to the standard approaches were unexpected, but effective," Maya pointed out. "The data will show that the modified approach vectors improve performance across all metrics." Jackson nodded stiffly. "The data will need careful analysis, of course." "Of course," Maya agreed, "and I'd be happy to walk through it with you and the training staff. My goal isn't to discount your work, Commander. It's to build on it." Something in her tone seemed to reach him, and some of the tension left his shoulders. "I look forward to reviewing your approach in detail." Colonel Rivera clapped his hands together. I think this calls for a full debriefing. Everyone to the conference room in 30 minutes. As the crowd dispersed, Lieutenant Wong approached. With a grin. That was amazing, Captain. You should see the data. You beat Commander Jackson's best time by nearly 40 seconds. Maya smiled. The aircraft did the work. I just let it do what it was designed to do. And you won me a week's worth of coffee, Wong added in a lower voice. The betting pool paid out big for those of us who had faith in you. Maya shook her head, amused despite herself. Glad to be of service, Lieutenant. In the distance, she could see mechanics already swarming over the F-35, checking it after the flight. One gave her a thumbs up. The aircraft had performed flawlessly. Maya walked toward the ready room to change out of her flight suit. She felt a profound sense of satisfaction. Today wasn't just about proving herself to Commander Jackson or the others at Westfield. It was about demonstrating a better way forward for the training program, one that would help more pilots succeed. In the conference room later, the mood was electric as Maya walked through her approach, explaining the modifications she had made to each phase of the course. The pilots listened intently, many taking notes. The key is working with the aircraft's natural flight dynamics, she explained, pointing to a diagram on the screen. The F-35 wants to fly a certain way. Fighting against that creates unnecessary strain on both the pilot and the machine. But doesn't that make the training too easy? Jackson asked. Pilots need to be prepared for worst-case scenarios. Absolutely, Maya agreed. But there's a difference between challenging pilots and setting them up to fail. The current approach does the latter. She brought up the performance data from her flight. Look at the stress indicators during the high-speed transition. My approach reduced pilot workload by nearly 30% while actually improving response time. The numbers were compelling and even Jackson couldn't argue with them. Your approach does show promise, he admitted, though I still have concerns about combat readiness. Which is why I'm suggesting a phased training approach, Maya said. Start with the optimized procedures to build confidence and muscle memory, then gradually introduce complications and emergency scenarios. Colonel Rivera, who had been listening quietly, finally spoke up. Captain Chen's demonstration today has convinced me that changes to our training program are not just warranted but necessary. Commander Jackson, I want you and Captain Chen to work together to implement these modifications. Jackson looked startled. Sir, you designed the original program, Commander. You know it better than anyone, and Captain Chen has clearly demonstrated a better approach to some key elements. Together you can create something better than either of you could alone. Maya met Jackson's gaze across the table. I'm willing if you are, Commander. After a moment's hesitation, Jackson nodded. For the good of the program, sir. As the meeting broke up, Maya found herself surrounded by trainees all eager to ask questions about her approach. Their enthusiasm was infectious, and Maya felt a surge of purpose. This was why she had come to Westfield, not to prove herself, but to make a difference for these young pilots. By the end of the day, word of Maya's flight had spread throughout the base. What had begun as skepticism about the woman in a dress had transformed into respect for Captain Chen, the pilot who had conquered the impossible course and was now reshaping the training program. As she walked back to her quarters that evening, Maya paused to look up at the darkening sky. Somewhere above the clouds, the stars were coming out, those same stars she had reached for her entire career. Today, she had soared a little closer to them, not just for herself, but for all the pilots who would follow. 6 weeks had passed since Maya's demonstration flight, and Westfield Air Force Base hummed with a new energy. The F-35 training hangar, once filled with tension and frustration, now buzzed with focused determination as pilots worked through the revised program. Maya stood at the back of the simulator room, watching a young lieutenant navigate a complex sequence that would have been considered nearly impossible under the old system. His movements were confident, his breathing steady as he worked with the aircraft rather than fighting against it. He's going to make it, Lieutenant Wong said quietly, standing beside her with a clipboard of performance data. Maya nodded, pride warming her chest as the simulator screen showed a successful completion. The lieutenant pulled off his helmet, his face breaking into a grin as he saw his score. That's the 5th trainee to pass this module on the first attempt, Wong noted. Under the old system, our first-time success rate was less than 20%. And how does Commander Jackson feel about these numbers? Maya asked, though she already knew the answer. Wong smiled. Publicly, cautiously optimistic. Privately, I think he's impressed, though he'd never admit it directly. Over the past weeks, Maya and Jackson had worked together to completely overhaul the training program. The collaboration had been tense at first, with Jackson reluctant to abandon approaches he'd developed over years. But as the data from Maya's methods continued to show superior results, his resistance had gradually given way to grudging acceptance, then active participation. "Captain Chen," called a voice from the doorway. Maya turned to see Colonel Rivera gesturing for her to join him. "Got a minute?" "Of course, sir." Maya followed him into the hallway, where they could speak privately. "The results from the first group of trainees under the new program came in this morning," Rivera said, his voice warm with approval. "Highest success rate we've ever recorded by a significant margin. That's excellent news, sir. The Pentagon thinks so too." Rivera handed her a folder. "They've been monitoring our progress closely. This came in today." Maya opened the folder and scanned the contents, her eyes widening slightly. "They want to implement our training protocols across all F-35 facilities. Effective immediately," Rivera confirmed. "Your methodologies are about to become the new standard for the entire Air Force F-35 program." A rush of satisfaction filled Maya. This was exactly what she had hoped for. Changes that would benefit not just the pilots at Westfield, but throughout the service. "There's more," Rivera continued. "They're establishing a new advanced training division focused on developing and implementing next-generation protocols for all our aircraft. They want you to head it." Maya looked up startled. "Me, sir?" "You've proven yourself to be not just an exceptional pilot, but an innovative thinker and an effective leader. Those qualities are rare, Captain." Rivera smiled. "Though I suppose I should start calling you Major Chen. The promotion comes with the position." "Major?" Maya repeated, momentarily speechless. "Effective next month once the paperwork clears." Rivera's smile widened. "Congratulations, Maya. You've earned it." "Thank you, sir," Maya said, struggling to process the news. "I don't know what to say. You can start by deciding who you want on your team. You'll have considerable latitude in selecting personnel." Maya's mind was already racing with possibilities. "I'd like to talk with Commander Jackson before making any decisions." Rivera raised an eyebrow. "Jackson? Given your history, I'm a bit surprised." "He's stubborn and traditional, but he's also brilliant," Maya said honestly. Once he got past his initial resistance, his contributions to the new program were invaluable. The combined approach is stronger than either of our individual methods would have been. "That's very generous of you, considering how he treated you when you arrived." Maya shrugged. "This isn't about personal feelings, it's about creating the best possible training for our pilots." Rivera nodded approvingly. "And that right there is why you're the right person for this job." He checked his watch. "I have a call with the Pentagon in 10 minutes. We'll discuss the details of your new position tomorrow." After Rivera left, Maya stood in the hallway, letting the news sink in. Major Chen, head of the Advanced Training Division. It was more than she had ever imagined when she'd arrived at Westfield 6 weeks ago. Dismissed and underestimated, she found Jackson in his office, surrounded by stacks of performance data and flight recordings. He looked up as she knocked on the open door. "Captain?" He greeted her, his tone neutral but not unfriendly. Their working relationship had evolved into something resembling mutual respect, if not quite friendship. "Commander," Maya replied. "Do you have a minute?" Jackson gestured to the chair across from his desk. "I'm reviewing the data from Lieutenant Park's simulator run. His improved performance is notable." Coming from Jackson, this was high praise. "The whole group is showing similar improvements," Maya said. "Colonel Rivera just gave me the overall numbers. I saw them." Jackson leaned back in his chair. They're compelling. The Pentagon thinks so too, Maya said, and explained about the plan to implement their protocols across all F-35 facilities. Jackson nodded slowly. They're making the right call. The combined approach is clearly superior to the previous methods. He hesitated, then added, including mine. From anyone else, this might have been a small admission. From Jackson, it was monumental. I couldn't have developed it without your input, Maya said honestly. Your experience with combat scenarios added a critical dimension to the training. Jackson acknowledged this with a slight nod. What did Rivera want? I assume it wasn't just to share the good news. Maya took a deep breath. They're establishing a new advanced training division. He's offered me the position of director. Something flickered in Jackson's eyes. Surprise, perhaps a touch of envy, but not the resentment she might have expected weeks ago. Congratulations, he said after a moment. It's well deserved. Thank you. Maya leaned forward slightly. I'd like you to be part of it. Now Jackson looked genuinely startled. Me? As deputy director, Maya clarified. We've proven that our combined approach works better than either of us could achieve alone. I'd like to continue that partnership. Jackson stared at her, clearly caught off guard by the offer. After how I treated you when you arrived, the dismissal, the skepticism, the advanced course challenge. That was then, Maya said simply. We've moved past it. Have we? Jackson's voice was curious rather than confrontational. I think we have. Maya met his gaze directly. You judged me based on appearances and assumptions. You were wrong. You've acknowledged that through your actions, if not your words. That's enough for me. Jackson was silent for a long moment, studying her with new eyes. I was wrong. He finally said, the words coming slowly, as if unfamiliar to his tongue. Not just about you, but about my approach to training. It took seeing your methods to realize how much room for improvement there was. That's why I want you on my team, Maya said. Someone who never questions their methods can't improve them. You were willing to change your perspective when the evidence demanded it. That's rare. And valuable? Jackson asked with the hint of a smile. Very valuable, Maya confirmed. So what do you say? Will you join the new division? Jackson considered the offer. The work would be challenging, developing new protocols for multiple aircraft types, not just the F-35. Exactly. I need someone who thinks differently than I do. Someone who will push back when necessary, who will see angles I might miss. Then yes, Jackson decided. I accept. Maya smiled, genuinely pleased. Good. I'll let Colonel Rivera know. As she stood to leave, Jackson asked, Does this mean I'll be taking orders from you now? It does, Maya confirmed, unable to resist adding, Think you can handle that, Commander? To her surprise, Jackson laughed, a genuine sound she'd rarely heard from him. I think I can manage, Major. The title, which Rivera had used earlier, sounded strange coming from Jackson. The promotion isn't official yet, she pointed out, but it will be. Jackson stood and extended his hand. And it's well earned, Major Chen. Maya shook his hand, feeling the genuine respect in his grip. Thank you, Commander Jackson. 3 days later, Maya stood in the base auditorium, watching as the newest group of F-35 trainees received their program completion certificates. Under the revised training system, their graduation rate had jumped from 62% to 91%, with performance metrics showing significant improvements across all areas. Colonel Rivera called each name, shaking hands with the graduates as they crossed the stage. Maya and Jackson stood nearby, both in formal dress uniforms representing the program leadership. And finally, Rivera said, as the last trainee returned to their seat, I have a special announcement. As many of you know, our F-35 training program has recently undergone significant revisions, resulting in the impressive results we're celebrating today. He gestured to Maya and Jackson. These changes were spearheaded by Captain Chen and Commander Jackson, whose collaborative approach has created a new standard of excellence that will soon be implemented across all Air Force F-35 facilities. Applause filled the auditorium. Maya stood straight, her face composed despite the pride swelling in her chest. In recognition of this achievement, Rivera continued, and her exceptional leadership, I am pleased to announce that Captain Maya Chen has been promoted to the rank of Major, effective immediately. More applause, louder this time. Maya stepped forward as Rivera opened a small box containing her new insignia. Traditionally, Rivera said, a fellow officer assists with the new rank installation. Commander Jackson, would you do the honors? A murmur of surprise ran through the audience. Everyone at Westfield knew about the initial tension between Jackson and Maya. For him to participate in her promotion ceremony was a powerful symbol of how far they had come. Jackson stepped forward without hesitation. As he carefully removed the captain's bars from Maya's uniform and replaced them with the gold oak leaf of a major, he spoke quietly, for her ears alone. When you first arrived, I saw a woman in a dress who couldn't possibly be a real pilot. His fingers worked precisely as he secured the new insignia. I was wrong. What I should have seen was a brilliant officer who would make us all better. Maya met his gaze, seeing the genuine respect there. Thank you, Commander. Rivera presented Maya with her promotion certificate, then addressed the audience again. Major Chen will also be taking on a new role, as director of the newly established Advanced Training Division, which will develop next-generation training protocols for all Air Force aircraft. More applause, with some cheers mixed in. Maya could see her trainee pilots looking particularly proud, as if her achievement reflected on them as well. Assisting her as deputy director will be Commander Jackson, Rivera added, bringing another murmur of surprise from the crowd. Together they have demonstrated that combining different perspectives and approaches leads to superior results, a lesson that extends far beyond pilot training. After the ceremony, Maya found herself surrounded by well-wishers, pilots she had trained, colleagues she had worked with, even mechanics and ground crew who had supported her flights. The base that had once viewed her with skepticism now embraced her as one of their own. Later that evening, as the celebration wound down, Maya walked across the darkened airfield toward the hangars. The F-35s rested inside, powerful and sleek, waiting for tomorrow's flights. In the distance, she could hear the soft rumble of a night training mission returning to base, the aircraft's lights blinking against the star-filled sky. She stopped and looked up, taking in the vastness above her. From a girl who dreamed of flying to a major who would shape how the next generation of pilots learned their craft, it had been a journey filled with challenges and obstacles, many of them placed in her path simply because of who she was and how she looked. "Major?" came a voice from behind her. Maya turned to see one of the female trainees, Lieutenant Harper, approaching hesitantly. "Sorry to disturb you." "Not at all, Lieutenant. What can I do for you?" Harper seemed to struggle for words. "I just wanted to say, seeing you succeed here, especially after how things started, it means a lot. To all of us, but especially to the female pilots." Maya smiled, understanding perfectly. "We all need to see someone like us succeed, to know it's possible." "Exactly." Harper straightened her shoulders. "When Commander Jackson had you escorted off the base that first day, we all heard about it. And then when you came back and proved yourself, it changed things here. Not just the training program." "Change takes time," Maya said gently. "And it usually comes with resistance. But it does come," Harper said with conviction. "You showed us that." After the lieutenant left, Maya remained by the hangars a while longer, thinking about change, in training programs, in attitudes, in people. Jackson had surprised her with his capacity for growth once he moved past his initial assumptions. The pilots had embraced new methods once they saw the results. Even she had changed, learning to build bridges rather than simply proving herself right. Tomorrow would bring new challenges. The Advanced Training Division would face skepticism and resistance as they implemented changes across multiple bases and aircraft types. There would be more Commander Jacksons, more barriers to overcome. But tonight, standing under the stars beside the aircraft she loved, Major Maya Chen allowed herself to simply savor how far she had come, from the woman in a dress who was kicked out by a dismissive pilot to the leader who had transformed training on their turf. The F-35s waited in their hangars, powerful machines designed to defy gravity and soar beyond boundaries. Maya smiled at the parallel. That's exactly what she had done and would continue to do, defy expectations and soar beyond the boundaries others tried to set for her, and she would bring others along with her, opening the sky for all who dared to fly.